On a remote Bavarian farm named Hinterkaifeck, a chilling tale of murder began to unfold. It was 1922, just after World War I, and Germany was finding its footing. But in this isolated pocket of the countryside, a sinister force was at play. This is the story of the Gruber family and their two maids, whose lives were brutally extinguished in an act of violence that remains shrouded in mystery to this day. What happened at Hinterkaifeck is not just a true crime case. It's a terrifying puzzle with no missing pieces, yet no solution. The Gruber family farm, Hinterkaifeck, was situated deep in the countryside, a place where neighbors were distant and privacy was absolute. The family consisted of Andreas Gruber, 63, the patriarch, his wife, Cecilia, 72, their widowed daughter, Victoria Gabriel, 35, and Victoria's two children, Cecilia, 7, and Joseph, 2. Joseph was rumored to be the result of an incestuous relationship between Andreas and Victoria, a dark secret that hung over the family, causing whispers and ostracization in the tight-knit community. Just days before the murders, their previous maid had abruptly left, claiming the house was haunted. Her replacement, Maria Baumgartner, arrived on the very day of the killings. This quick change of staff, especially under such strange circumstances, would later become a peculiar detail. The Grubers were not popular. Andreas was known to be ill-tempered, quick to anger, and had frequent legal disputes with neighbors over minor land disagreements or boundaries. There were persistent rumors about their secretive nature and the dark allegations concerning Joseph's parentage, adding to their isolation. This general unlikability, combined with their remote location, meant that when they vanished from public sight, it took a few days for anyone to notice. Before the murders, a series of increasingly bizarre and unsettling incidents plagued the farm, hinting at an unseen presence. These were isolated events. They built a chilling narrative of a lurking danger. The previous maid, who had been with the family for 6 months, left suddenly in mid-March, just 2 weeks before the murders. She swore she heard footsteps in the attic and claimed the house was haunted. She fled in terror, refusing her wages, a desperate act that spoke volumes about her fear. Just days after she left, Andreas Gruber himself made a disturbing discovery. He found unfamiliar footprints in the fresh snow leading from the dense forest directly to the house. Crucially, there were no footprints leading away. It was as if someone had approached the farm, vanished inside, and remained. Shortly after, Andreas discovered his house keys were missing. He specifically recalled them hanging on a hook by the door, and now they were gone. This suggested easy access for an intruder, or perhaps someone already familiar with the house's layout. A few days before the murders, Andreas found a strange newspaper on the farm's property, one he hadn't purchased and that wasn't subscribed to by anyone in the household. It was a newspaper from the nearby town of Schrobenhausen, seemingly just left there. The family dog, known for its protective nature, began to bark incessantly at the forest, fixated on something unseen, often for hours at a time. This unusual behavior added to the mounting unease. The night before the murders, neighbors living miles away reported hearing muffled sounds from the direction of the farm, and observed smoke billowing unusually from the chimney, suggesting someone was inside, active despite the Grubers not being known for staying up late or having visitors. These incidents, dismissed as oddities or superstition at the time, painted a horrifying picture of a gradual, deliberate intrusion, a chilling cat-and-mouse game where a lurking danger was slowly closing in and the family either ignored or couldn't escape its grasp. The murders are believed to have occurred on the evening of March 31st, 1922. For several days afterward, life at Hinterkaifeck seemed to continue, yet eerily. On April 1st, a coffee salesman arrived at the farm, hoping to make a sale. He found the farm deserted, heard no one, and left. He thought nothing of it at the time, assuming the family was simply out Later that same day, a mechanic named Albert Hoffner visited the farm to repair a small engine. He too found no one, but noted that the barn door was open, which he thought unusual. He reported hearing the cows in the barn, suggesting they were still being tended to. Over the next few days, the Grubers didn't collect their mail from the post office, which was highly uncharacteristic for Andreas. Perhaps most alarmingly, 7-year-old Cecilia Gabriel was absent from school on April 1st, 3rd, and 4th. The teacher sent a message to the parents, expressing concern, but received no reply. It was these accumulating signs of absence and neglect that finally spurred action. Neighbors, accustomed to the Grubers' reclusive nature, but increasingly worried by the silence and the uncollected mail, decided to investigate. On April 4th, 1922, a small search party, led by Lawrence Schlittenbauer, a local farmer, approached Hinterkaifeck. What they found would forever haunt the quiet Bavarian countryside. Entering the barn, the smell of death was undeniable. There, hidden beneath hay, they discovered the first horrific scene. Andreas Gruber, Cecilia Gruber, Victoria Gabriel, and the youngest Cecilia, the entire adult family, and the 7-year-old girl were all found brutally murdered, stacked on top of each other. They had been killed with a mattock, a pickaxe-like farming tool, likely belonging to Andreas Gruber himself. The sheer force used suggested immense anger or calculated brutality. The search party then cautiously entered the house. The tension must have been palpable. Inside, they found the bodies of Maria Baumgartner, the new maid, in her bedchamber, and Joseph Gabriel, the 2-year-old boy, in his bassinet. Both had also been killed with the same, or a similar, mattock. The violence was indiscriminate, sparing no one, not even a child. The deliberate stacking of bodies in the barn and the positioning of the victims in the house suggested a chillingly cold and calculated killer, possibly aiming for both efficiency and a gruesome display. The subsequent police investigation, led by Inspector Georg Gruber, immediately ran into frustrating dead ends. The crime scene presented a series of bizarre contradictions. The weapon, the mattock used, was definitively identified as a farm tool from the Grubers' own property. This strongly suggested the killer either resided on the farm or knew its layout intimately, implying an insider or someone with easy access. No forced entry. Perhaps the most perplexing detail was the complete lack of forced entry into the house or barn. Doors were locked from the inside, and windows were intact. The killer seemed to have gained access easily, possibly using the missing keys Andreas had reported, or perhaps was already inside. No robbery. Despite the brutal violence, no significant valuables were taken from the farm. Money was found untouched in various locations. This immediately ruled out robbery as the primary motive, sending investigators scrambling for alternative explanations. Continuing activity after the murders, the most chilling aspect was the evidence that, after the murders, someone had remained on the farm for several days. The cattle had been fed, meals were prepared in the kitchen, and food had been eaten. Fresh coffee had been brewed. The family dog was let out. Neighbors even reported seeing smoke from the chimney and hearing the dog bark, assuming the family was simply being reclusive. This suggested the killer was either living among the bodies or returned repeatedly to tend to the farm and maintain the illusion that nothing was amiss. This pointed to either an intimate, disturbed connection to the Grubers or an astonishingly audacious and cold-blooded killer. Police initially cast a wide net, focusing on disgruntled former employees, jilted lovers, or neighbors with grievances. However, all leads went nowhere. The extreme isolation of the farm meant there were no direct witnesses, and the bizarre confluence of details, the weapon, the lack of forced entry, the missing robbery motive, and the post-murder activity left investigators completely stumped. Over the decades, as the official investigation faltered, Numerous theories and suspects have emerged, keeping the Hinterkaifeck mystery alive. None have ever led to a definitive answer, only further speculation. Carl Gabriel, Victoria's husband, Carl, was reportedly killed in action during World War I in 1914. However, his body was never recovered. This led to speculation that he might have returned from the war, perhaps disfigured, suffering from trauma, or driven by anger over his wife's rumored incestuous relationship with her father, Andreas. He could have secretly returned to the farm and committed the murders. This theory, however, remains unsubstantiated. There's no proof he survived the war. The Gump brothers. Local rumors often pointed to two brothers, Adolf and Anton Gump, who were supposedly involved in a prior dispute with Andreas Gruber. One brother, Adolf, even claimed on his deathbed to have been involved in the Hinterkaifeck murders, but later recanted his statement, leading to more confusion. Joseph Bertel, a local handyman who had previously worked for the Grubers. He was known to have a temper and was considered a suspect early on due to his familiarity with the farm. However, police eventually cleared him. The incest taboo and revenge, the deeply unsettling rumors about the incestuous relationship between Andreas and Victoria, and Joseph's suspected parentage, fueled theories of revenge. Could a jilted lover of Victoria, or even someone disgusted by the situation, have sought violent retribution? A mentally unstable drifter, some theories suggest a transient individual, perhaps mentally ill, stumbled upon the farm. This might explain the random brutality, but not the detailed knowledge of the farm, the missing keys, or the prolonged post-murder presence. The insider theory, the most chilling and persistent theory, is that the killer was someone intimately known to the family, perhaps even a resident or a very frequent visitor. This would explain the lack of forced entry, the easy access, and especially the calm, calculated actions of feeding animals and preparing meals after the murders. This implies a level of cold-bloodedness that is hard to comprehend. Despite extensive investigations, including exhumations of the bodies in 1923 for further examination, psychological profiling decades later, and modern forensic reviews using techniques unavailable in 1922, no conclusive evidence has ever tied a killer to Hinterkaifeck. More than 100 suspects were interviewed over the years, but no charges were ever successfully brought. Soon after the murders, the farm itself became a macabre tourist attraction. People would visit, drawn by the chilling mystery, often taking pieces as gruesome souvenirs. This morbid curiosity only added to the tragedy. Eventually, to stop the macabre tourism and perhaps to try and erase the memory of the horror, the decision was made to demolish the farmhouse in 1923. Every trace of the building was removed, hoping to bury the secrets with it. Only a small memorial shrine, erected later, marks the former location today, a silent sentinel to the unspeakable events that transpired. The Hinterkaifeck murders quickly embedded themselves deep into German folklore and true crime history. It's a case meticulously studied by criminologists, passionately debated by armchair detectives, and discussed in countless books, documentaries, and even a feature film. The sheer audacity and cold calculation of a killer who meticulously murdered an entire family, including a child, and then lived among their bodies for several days, only to vanish without a trace, makes it particularly terrifying and unforgettable. It's a case that seems to defy all conventional criminal logic. What makes Hinterkaifeck so compelling and terrifying is the lack of a clear motive and the chilling audacity of the killer. This wasn't a robbery gone wrong. It was a methodical, intimate act of violence followed by a calm, calculated presence. The thought of an unknown individual living among the murdered family, feeding the animals, preparing meals, and potentially sleeping in their beds evokes a primal, deeply unsettling fear. It speaks to the terror of a predator who is not just violent, but utterly unhinged, deeply manipulative, and seemingly invisible. The unanswered questions, who, why, and how did they get away, create an unsettling vacuum in the history of crime. It's a stark reminder that sometimes, even with substantial evidence of what happened, the who and why can remain forever hidden. The victims, the Grubers and Maria Baumgartner, never received justice or closure. And the quiet Bavarian farm, now just an empty field, holds secrets that may forever be buried under the earth, making it a true crime enigma frozen in time. What do you think happened at Hinterkaifeck? Was it a scorned lover, a vengeful former worker, or something far more sinister and unimaginable? The case remains officially open, a chilling testament to the dark capabilities of the human mind and the persistent, terrifying allure of the unknown.